All right, welcome back, Florida Football Insiders Podcast. We're happy to be joined again by Coach Jim Leavitt. Coach Leavitt, Merry Christmas. Hope you had a good holiday with your girls.
Merry Christmas. Yes, it was busy. Christmas is a huge holiday. Christ was born, very powerful day, and then the gifts, and the gifts seem to take precedent over everything, and that's a big deal. That's for sure. With my girls, it's a big deal.
Talk about during the holidays when you were a coach, both in the NFL and college. How did you work around, just the holidays? And I'm sure in the NFL you didn't probably play on Christmas, but you had practice up until Christmas Eve, things like that. How did you handle just the personal life things of shopping a little bit, getting some stuff for your girls and for your family and just those kind of things, balancing that with still your coaching responsibilities?
No, it's very difficult for all coaches. And it's one of the things that is kind of sad. Thanksgiving, I never saw Thanksgiving, really, because you're always playing or you're so involved with game planning. Usually have that day you might eat a meal.
Yep.
See your family for a few hours, but that's it. And especially the last number of years when I was gone, that time was tough. Christmas, same way, because usually bowl games, right, or you're traveling. Like last year, I was at SMU. We were set to travel the day after Christmas to go to Boston. Well, we found out on the 26th that Virginia was not going to play in the bowl game because of COVID. So that completely canceled the bowl. I was in a car that day. I packed up everything in Dallas and drove to Tampa.
Wow.
So, really missed Christmas last year. So it's very difficult for coaches, very difficult for families, all that. A lot of times you like to incorporate that into the bowl game. And if you have an understanding family and understanding wife, then it works. If you don't, then it doesn't work.
Right. For the kids, when you guys are in bowl season this time of the year, do you give the kids a couple of days off before Christmas? Let's say you have a bowl game in New Year's. Obviously, most teams probably meet a day or two after Christmas to get back prepping for the New Year's bowl game. Do you give them a couple of days off? And is it their responsibility to get to the bowl game? Do they get a per diem? Or do you guys all meet back in your central campus and travel together?
I always have everybody traveling together because I was concerned about something happening.
Right.
Either, you just don't know. When you have everybody traveling on their own, are they going to get there on time? Are they going to be there? Is something going to happen?
Right.
You worry about a lot of different things. So I always went on the side of safety. Now, the problem with that is in recruiting, other coaches will use that against you because other coaches in bowl games, they'll let everybody travel to the site and meet there because they can make a lot more money because they can get their own flights. It's just, it's
a balancing act. Yeah, it's a balancing act. Yep.
Yeah, it just depends on if you want to give more money to the players and more autonomy as far as getting there or not. I don't know what most coaches do now. I would imagine a lot of them, maybe it's split, depending on the bowl game and where it's at.
All right, let's talk about recruiting. You mentioned recruiting. Obviously, the signing day was a week or so back. Interesting, a couple weeks back. Interesting now the NCAA is in the last several years they've created two signing days, an early signing day in December and then the traditional one in February. Do you like that concept now of having two different days, or would you prefer to all be done one day? That way you can spend all your time and then you can move on to the next thing as being a coach.
Well, I'm kind of old school. So, I always like the one sign date and that's it. However, the one nice thing about the early sign days, you get a lot of things out of the way. A lot of these players that they know where they're going to go. You don't want to waste any more time on the phone, traveling, going to see kids if you're not going to get them.
Right.
And sometimes these players can kind of keep you, on the hook a little bit and cause you to spend a lot of time with those guys that are the number one or two or three people on your board, and you're losing ground with number 4 or 5 or 6 on your board. So the one thing it does, it cleans up your board. It allows people to make decisions where they're going to go. And it now you have the ability to kind of regroup a little bit have you met your needs? What has changed? Who did you get? And your staff can kind of come back together and really focus in on those 5 or 6 guys you have to get. Now those guys are getting really hit because all the schools are in the same position, and so now they're gonna really go after this. Some of those guys, when they wait for that second signing period, get hammered so hard because everything else, all the dust is cleared,
Right.
and they all going after you hard. So, but it
There
cleans
was
it up.
Yeah, there was one.
Up.
There was a couple. Obviously, you hear stories on recruiting every year, but there was one high-profile kid this year that had committed to Notre Dame. Then he committed to Oregon. Then he ended up at Oklahoma, all within a 24-hour period on signing day. How frustrating for you as a coach, or exciting for you if you're the recipient of that kid, or if you're the school that loses a kid like that has told you for 3 months or 2 months, hey, I'm coming to your school, I'm coming to play for you. Then he changes his mind at the last minute, or you're the beneficiary of it. A kid you've been working hard, and all of a sudden he flips to you.
It's really stressful. You've worked on some of these guys for years, not months.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring somebody to the table, they've committed to you, you're all set, and then you lose them. That's tough, and emotionally it's tough because you gain such a relationship.
Right.
Not only him, but his family, his friends, all his teachers at the school, the principal, everybody.
Right.
To get a high profile athlete, you gotta
Spend
cover all your bases.
Time. Yep.
The uncle that might be 2 states away.
Right.
Who is that person that's really helping that player with the decision? And you got to find out who they are and make sure you get close to them. So it's really hard. Obviously, if you flip somebody to you, it's great. But in the end, you work your tail off. You try to stay away from the emotion of it all, and you realize that you're not going to know how good these guys are for a year anyway. But sometimes 2 years.
Right.
And really, if coaches are honest, and these services ask you how your class looked this year, well, every coach in the country is going to say,
"Yeah,
right, we got everybody we wanted.
Yeah,
we're going to be great." And obviously, half the schools in the country are not, half are, or either way. So you don't really know because there's so many variables with these players, adversity that hits these guys in college from different angles that they've never experienced before.
Right.
And you don't know who's going to be able to handle that adversity. So it's not all about the athletic talent. It's about the character of a young man, his heart, how he's driven, how well he gravitates and grabs the investment of time.
Living on his own in a dorm with other people and not his family around and all that stuff.
Especially your freshman year, because Motion University is going to make you live on campus. And sometimes those dorms are not very nice, or they're okay. And you're coming from home where who knows what the home life is like, sometimes good or sometimes bad. Usually you get through that freshman year, you got better chance, but now you got the portal. Yep. So now all of a sudden you don't play, you're gone. So there's so many factors that enter into a recruiting class and whether it's going to be a successful one or not.
Seems like in the last, probably you tell me, you know this better than I do, that years ago when I was playing, when you were playing, there was kind of an unwritten rule when Jim Leavitt, the safety, committed to somewhere, coaches kind of hands off, he's going to that school. Nowadays, is there any kind of unwritten rule among you coaches about when a guy formally says, I'm going to South Florida, or I'm going to Florida or Texas or Oklahoma, that other coaches kind of hands off of them unless the kid opens the door and says, I'm going to reopen my recruitment? Or is that just completely out the window?
Completely out the window. It's evil. What I usually prep a guy that commits to us and say, now you're going to get hit by a lot of coaches. The most important thing you can do is have your mom or dad, whoever is, running the show, make sure that they're the ones that talk to these other coaches. Right. Tell them they appreciate them. They appreciate the interest, but Johnny has made his decision. He's going to so-and-so, and appreciate if you don't call anymore.
Okay.
Now if you can get a parent to do that, which you should be able to, then that goes a long ways. Now, is that going to stop schools? No, because they're going to go work the coach, or they're going to work, if the dad's making that comment, they're going to work the mom,
or the
or they're
uncle.
going to work the aunt. They're going to work somebody else, because what do they care? They're gonna be relentless in getting this player. So that family's got to be on board together. They got to be strong, and that player's got to be strong and know what they want, or things happen, and it happens all the time.
All right, that's great. That's a great answer, because, like you said, it goes on. I'm sure it's even worse now with NIL money and all that stuff, and the ease of the transfer portal and things like that. So, all right, let's go to some bowl prep. A couple bowl prep questions. How do you, as a coach, when you're, there's varying level. You always hear analysts and people on TV talking about the excitement level of a team going into a bowl game. A team that's maybe 6-6 versus a team that's had an unbelievable year. They're 9-3, 10-2. When they're the emotional level and the motivation level. How did you always handle the motivation level of a team that you were coaching? Maybe you didn't have as good a year as you thought, but you're still in a bowl game, or maybe you overachieved and now you're in a bowl game. How do you handle that motivation level to keep the motivation level up?
It's very difficult now, very difficult, because most of these bowl games, like I think Baylor played Air Force, and Baylor had a lot of players that didn't even play.
Right.
You have all these top players, seniors, juniors, that are going out in the draft, and are going to play in the bowl game. So it's really not the team that played that year. You have to try to play the guys that are probably the most ambitious or really want to play, might be younger guys. The bowl practices are really, really important for development of players. You try to have as much energy as you can in that bowl game, because if you don't have the energy, you're not going to probably have a chance to win. It's just so different today. It really is. And everybody seems to focus on the last 4 teams that are playing, and maybe some of these other bowl games. Yeah, I haven't watched a lot of bowl games this year.
Yep. You don't know who's playing. You don't know who's playing.
It's just very, very difficult. But play the guys that you feel like want to play, even if it's a younger guy. Try to find the you really have to get your players excited about playing. Try to drive home the fact that you're playing them for the seniors that are playing, the seniors that are going.
Yeah.
And that you them. You've got to find a way for cause. You've got to develop a cause for that bowl game, one way or another. That's a really, really important thing to do.
So the experience for the kids, some of these kids have maybe either never been to a bowl game, and 2, they've never really traveled much. These bowl games, the cool thing is you get to go to different places, whether it's California, Texas, Florida, wherever. Fenway Park, you talked about, Yankee Stadium. How do you balance we want to work hard and get ready for this bowl game, but also understand it's an experience for the kids to travel, to enjoy a new environment, all these bowl games have events where they go to have an event a couple nights during the prep. How do you allow them to enjoy that experience, but yet keep their mind focused on the task at hand?
Well, that's difficult too. It depends on the motivation of players, certainly. But my point is this: a lot of bowl games now, because of money or travel or whatever, they don't do as many things.
Okay.
I've been to a bunch of bowls through my career. Way back when you go to a bowl game, you went a lot earlier. You spent a lot of time there. In your first 2 days, you might not even have a curfew for the players.
You go to the beach, like down here, they would take kids to the beach, Clearwater Beach, Busch Gardens, things like that.
But you might let them go to kind of just, enjoy that experience. And you tell them if they mess up, you're going to send them home on the next bus. So because you don't want to embarrass your program, you don't want to embarrass the school, and you've got to make sure you set a precedent with your players that, you better understand, and you're always going to worry about 3 or 4 guys. They're going to keep you up all night, thinking about it. That guy going to do the right thing.
Right.
Some are going to be good. And then you tell them ahead of time, the schedule, kind of what's going to go on, how you're going about this, and why each day is important, and what you're going to try to get done each day. You try to make sure you get all your preparation done before you leave for the bowl site.
Okay.
Your game plans for your defense coordinator, offense coordinator should be done, established. They should be able to play the game before you even get on a plane to go to the bowl. And then, try to wrap things up as you go, because the distractions are going to be there.
So you always watch bowl games too, where unless it's for the national title or a humongous bowl, one of these humongous bowl games, coaches are always very loosey goosey in their coaching, trick plays, new things. They empty out the playbook, as so to speak. Did you always have that mentality of, hey, we're going to be loosey goosey in these bowl games? I'm going to go for it on fourth down more often, things like that, as opposed to a little more close to the vest during the regular season?
I don't know. As a head coach, I went to 5 bowl games, and we always had the trick plays. I remember when we played against Holtz at our first bowl win at East Carolina, Papa John's Bowl. Yeah, we had all kinds of trick stuff we were doing with our punt team, and we were beating them pretty good. And I went ahead and did some of the stuff at the end of the game just to kind of, because I was curious how they were going to respond. So I kind of did it. It was kind of probably, I don't know how ethical it necessarily is. I don't know. I guess it's okay. But I did all kinds of things with that punt team just to line up to it. Oh, because we had so many fake punts that we had put in, 2 or 3 things. And
you used them all that day. You used them all.
Yeah, but you always want to have some things that you want to do some things different, because the team you're going to play is going to have all that time, and the GAs, everybody else is going to be looking at every piece of film.
Yeah.
You have your base core, what you're going to do, but you always want to do some things different.
Now let's get to the 2 bowl games that do matter. Ultimately, the 2 semifinal games, and how the difference in prep might be different than if you're in the Outback Bowl or the ReliaQuest Bowl or the Military Bowl. That's really just I won't say an exhibition game, but there's no national championship implications. These 2 bowl games.
Said that, Jason.
Huh?
And that's what I think is so sad.
Okay.
When I grew up coaching, of course, I've been in it 40 years.
Yep.
They never had the playoffs.
Right.
Every game was so significant.
Right.
I know people will beat me up for this, but I enjoyed that. And then you had to name a national champion off just whatever.
Right.
And there was always the debate or the controversy or whatever, but I didn't mind it. I never was in that. Well, we were in that position at Kansas State one time. We were finished 8th, so we were close. But now it's, all these other bowl games are bowl games. They're, how much do people pay attention to them? How much do people really watch them? Because everything is on the last 4 teams. So I think
I would say this, as New Year's Day is kind of the traditional bigger bowl. You got the Rose Bowl, you got the Citrus Bowl, and the Cotton Bowl. Those are the games that I think more fans, even though they don't have national championship implications, are still paying attention to. And the pageantry of the Rose Bowl, the pageantry of the Rose Bowl out in California. Those are just historical things where, even though you're not playing for a title, you still want to show out well as a program. Correct?
Right. You really do. And, people are going to watch those games, but, things have just changed a little bit.
How does your preparation, like you said, now it's the seriousness of the semifinal games, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, coaching wise, you've had a month off. One, are you worried about your players' physical conditioning, having that much time off of not playing, and then you had the holidays mixed in with Christmas? How do you handle the physical part of getting them back physically ready?
Well, it's I haven't been in that situation. I have coached in a bowl game on January 7th or January 9th.
Okay.
But that's the only thing I kind of go by.
Okay.
And you do have to give you have to know when that bowl game is and how many days that you think you'll need to prepare them. And you're right. You got to make sure you get them back in shape, and the weight room is really big. The conditioning is really big. All those things are important, and yet when you have these games so far pushed back, you have to give them some time. The finals and time with their family and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't prepared for a national championship. I haven't been in that scenario, but The only thing I can go by is when we played in Toronto, played against Northern Illinois, Jerry Kill's team. We won the game. We won it pretty big.
Yeah.
And that was my last game. I coached in South Florida, and we played well, played really well.
So,
and
so let me give you something that may be comparable on the pro level. Pro level, you have a bye week in the playoffs, or 2 weeks between the championship and the Super Bowl. Would that be a time where you would potentially put in a new scheme defensively or a new scheme on special teams that you haven't shown all year, or is the mentality of let's be really good at what we're really good at?
Well, the difference with the NFL is you're playing all the way through it. You're not going to have 5 weeks off till you play a game.
Right.
I was involved 3 years in a row with 3 NFC championship games and Super Bowl. We were playing 24 games, 23 games, and you just play right through it. Yes. We did do some things defensively. I know we had some things in there that were different pressure package, different things like that, that we had, but you've got your personality that got you there after 20-something games.
Right.
Kind of who you are. And you don't want to screw yourself up, your own players, even those men at the pro level. I coached in the Super Bowl against the Ravens and came down last play of the game.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Still no flag, coach. Still no interference call in the end zone.
Bad. They should have called that pass interference, but on Michael Crabtree. But there was 2 games before that came down last play just to go to the Super Bowl. And no, we you keep your base stuff, but you're always going to have some different things, both offensively and defensively. Of course, we had Kaepernick, our quarterback, so we ran a little bit more of the option. I know offensively than we had shown before going through the playoffs, especially the year we played the Super Bowl. And he was so good, at the option game because he could run. So that I know helped our offense and made it challenging for defense. Of course, Ravens handled it fairly well, although they should have lost game if we would have got that call.
Coach, I'd love to see you with that big Super Bowl ring on your finger right now. I really would.
Yeah, that'd been nice.
All right, let's get to the games. A couple matchups in the games I want to get your thoughts on. Let's go to Georgia and Ohio State first. To me, one of the factors in this game is Kirby Smart's pressure on defense. You're a defensive guy. Kirby's a defensive guy. It'll be interesting to see how they play this Ohio State high-flying offense. Will they blitz them? Will they play coverage? How do you think, what do you think Georgia's kind of philosophy is going to be going up against Ryan Day and that high-flying offense?
It's interesting because these are the 2 teams that were the hottest teams throughout most all the year. Ohio State kind of stumbled at the end the last number of games, but these were the 2 teams that everybody thought was going to be in a national championship game. A lot of people thought that.
Yep.
The way it was going through the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season. It's going to be really interesting. I still believe it's going to be whoever can run the ball.
Okay.
I think that would be a big deal. I know they both can throw it too. These teams all can run and throw, but I think the physicality of the line of scrimmage and be able to run the ball is going to be a big deal. Ohio State, I think, will maybe throw it a little bit better, and they might. It's going to be a heck of a game. I'm telling you. I don't know. I think Ohio State's got to get back to what they were at the beginning of the year when they were really humming along.
Yep.
Whatever that is, and they've got to kind of analyze what happened to them towards the last 3 weeks or so, and then get that back. That this could be one heck of a game because if they can play like they were early in the season, this game will be a heck of a game. But if not, Georgia's going to get them.
To me, the matchup to look for, I think, for Georgia's offense and Ohio State's defense is how does Ohio State match up with Georgia's tight ends? They've got a tremendous set of tight ends that can run, that can catch, that are going to be effective in the run game for Georgia in the run game. How is Ohio State going to deal with that physicality and the talent at tight end? Because you don't see a lot of college teams that have good tight ends.
It's coming around a lot more the last 3 or 4 years, though. I see it a lot more.
Okay.
Iowa State used a bunch. I know a number of teams started using those tight ends quite a bit more because it's hard. It's hard for defense, just because the ability to run or throw. And there's a lot of things you can do with those athletic big tight ends.
Yep.
Flexing them out, put them into the core, all the wings and the 3 tight ends, 2 tight ends. There's a lot of things you can do with it. And I know defensively, when I go against a team that use those tight ends a lot, like University of Washington did,
right?
Championship when I was at Colorado, really tough to defend, really tough, And so I agree with you. That's going to be a challenge for Ohio State.
All right, let's get to Michigan and TCU. I know you know the Michigan program well with your ties to Coach Harbaugh. Do you think this is going to be a game for Michigan where they just really try to pound the ball down TCU's throat and see, can you stop us?
Yeah, I do. I think if Michigan can't run the ball, TCU will probably win. TCU is so explosive with their receivers and the deep ball, but they'll run it too. They'll spread you out. And, when they're gonna throw their shots. Now you're going to get 6 to 8 shots by TCU, and Michigan's going to have to hold up with that with the explosive plays. But I think it's going to come down again to Michigan being able to run the ball. If they can run the ball and have success with that, and they'll do some play action there a little bit with a quarterback. And but they can run the ball, I think they'll win. But boy, if somehow, and the thing is TCU runs that 3-3 defense, which can be very tough on an offense that spreads it out. And, because you don't know where that safety is going to fit in the run game. But West Virginia used to run that 3-3 defense. We beat West Virginia 3 out of 4. We should have been 4 out of 4.
Right.
And the way we did it offensively, if we got into the I formation, we really ran right at it. Because by the time that safety came down, we felt like we could get 4 or 5 yards.
Right.
And just moving the chains. And I think the way you go against the defense for TCU is you got to be able to run the ball. And that's what'll be interesting to watch. I think the defense for TCU against the run game, Michigan's going to be it right there. It's going to be interesting to watch that.
I agree. Well, Coach, great analysis. Glad you had a great Christmas with the girls, and I know you'll be watching as the NFL teams get to the finish line here for the playoffs, bowl games. You got the national championship games or the playoff semifinal games on Saturday. Any big New Year's Eve plans? Are you a stay at home watch the fireworks kind of guy on New Year's when you had a chance to do that?
No, I can do it all. I can go out and I can celebrate with the best of them, or I can sit home. So, we'll see. We'll see.
I know you you'll have a great view from where you're at to see some fireworks in downtown. They do a good job down by where you're at and all that. So, Coach, appreciate the time. We may try to get you on next week previewing the championship game and all that stuff if you'll do that. And if not, we'll talk soon. Okay, Coach?
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Have a great week. We'll be right back with Joey Johnston talking about USF recruiting.